Good morning, everybody. Welcome to ACAP Hall County. Just a couple things before we get started. If you guys will fill out the little card, that will help us take attendance. Libby's got some materials that you guys should have. If you need to use a restroom, go out this door to the left. There's 2 bathrooms on your left. And then if you need to go back out, the exit is to your right. Just keep in mind this presentation is being recorded and we'll get it edited and put up on our YouTube channel shortly. So I'm going to turn it over to Libby Donahue. She is with Northeast Georgia Health System and she'll be talking to you guys about advanced directives.
Hey, so small crowd. I love a small crowd. Ask questions as we go. I'm going to throw a lot of information at you. A lot of it is legal information. I'm not giving any medical advice or legal advice, but the whole point of this is that everybody has a right to their healthcare choices. So when people are asked, every time they go to the hospital, they're asked if they have an advance directive. That's required by hospital systems. Most patients don't know that. Wherever she wants to sit. So what happens is the hospital, someone comes in and the hospital says, do you have an advance directive? And they're like, no, why? I don't even know what that is, whatever. And, the hospital goes on. But the point is that an advance directive is a patient's voice, right? You come to the hospital system for medical expertise, for medical help. You're not going to tell them what to do. They're going to tell you what to do, right? But there's a fine line between them telling you what you need to do and what parts of those things do you want or not want. And so a big part of advanced care planning is about empowering people to be active, not to be passive in the hospital. Don't be a passive recipient of care, but be an active participant, which is really important because I see people every day, we get about 300 referrals a month in the hospital of people that are inpatient. This isn't people I'm talking to in the community or people that we're talking to our outpatient clinics. These are people that are inpatient that don't know how to give voice to their choices. So that's why we do this. This is really important. Knowledge is power, which is why I'm going to throw a lot of knowledge at you because the whole point is that it is not for the hospital system to tell you your choices. It is for the hospital system to offer your choices and then for you to decide which of those things you want or not want. So I love the quote by Nelson Mandela. He has this great quote that says that I hope may your choices reflect your hopes and not your fears. Think about healthcare choices. Healthcare choices are scary. Comes with a diagnosis. People don't know what that means. What does that mean about my quality of life? What does that mean about the options that are available to me? What kind of care do I have access to? What kind of care do I want to request or refuse? How is this going to impact how I live life? So we want your choices to reflect your hopes of what you want out of your quality of life and the best quality you can have with this diagnosis instead of the fears of, oh my goodness, I have no idea what I'm going to do. We want people to feel empowered. So that's important in this. And then, okay. So the reason, I'm hitting the button too many times because I'm impatient. So the reason is because people feel very strongly about their decisions to the point that some people can even have them tattooed on themselves. Like, I am at this point that I do not want them to resuscitate me. That's really dramatic. Do you know why it's dramatic though? Because people are dying to figure out how to get the health system to listen to them. How do I make sure that they will hear my choices? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to tattoo it so that if they open up my blouse, they're going to see I don't want this. Well, guess what? The hospital isn't allowed to act on the tattoo. That's not legal. It shows that someone felt very strongly about their options, but you know what? We don't get to act on that. Let's show people how we can act on their choices. Written down in the documents that says this is what we legally listen to. That's what's so important about this. It shows that it matters. So this is what our team does for Northeast Georgia Health System. We are the advanced care planning team. What we do is the Respecting Choices program is advanced care planning. It's doing advance directives, the legal document that helps people give voice to their choices. Also, helping people understand a pulse, the other document that I've given you guys. The Georgia Pulse is a legal document that is the difference between legal wishes in your advance directive and a portable medical order. We're going to talk about that as we go. Also, plan in a can. This is something that our community has done. This becomes, how do we start talking about in case of an emergency? What do I need to have with me to go to the hospital? So all of these conversations are meant to initiate this whole thing of we need to talk about choices and how you might have to advocate for someone that you love, or someone that you love might have to advocate for you. So we have to start off by making sure that people understand what this language is, because I told you that people come to the hospital, they're asked if they have an advance directive, and most people are like, I don't even know what that is. No. Or people think, you know what? That's for people that are end of life. I don't need that. Don't come in here talking to me about that. They're very intimidated, like, No. So, advanced care planning. I'm going to tell everybody that they should be doing advanced care planning. And all that is a conversation. It means I want you to be talking with the people that you love. And them talking, and you telling them, and them telling you about what quality of life means to you. Okay? The legal document is the advanced directive for health care. What this is that a lot of people go, oh, well, I have a living will. Okay, well, in 2007, the Georgia legislature combined the durable power of attorney for health care and the living will. So people come into the hospital all the time and go, don't worry, I'm their POA. You're their POA for what? Your power of attorney. Guess what? You can be a financial power of attorney, or you can be a healthcare power of attorney. Same person, you might choose to do both of those things in your life. But they're different roles. So when people come in and say, oh, I'm their POA, we have to clarify, you're their POA for what? Because some people think that because their loved one has made them their financial POA, that also gives them rights as healthcare, and it doesn't. But it is as simple as doing it in an advance directive. We don't need to make it hard, but we do have to have legal documents in place. So that durable power of attorney for healthcare is now just your healthcare agent. It's not the financial, those are separate things. But then it also said, what the legislature said was, why these are both healthcare decisions, the living will and the durable power of attorney for healthcare. They should be in one document. So that's why it has two parts to it, because part one now becomes, who do you want to speak for you if you can't speak for yourself? Give that person authority that you want to speak for you in an advance directive and make them your healthcare agent. The second part is the living will part, the part that says, okay, now tell us what you would want to request or you would want to refuse. Don't tattoo DNR on yourself. Tell us that you would not want CPR. That's your choices, right? Do you want a feeding tube? Do you want mechanical ventilation? Do you want hydration, nutrition? Do you want? A lot of things in this conversation, more than just CPR. But when someone's advocating for you, they need to understand what your treatment preferences are. So those are the two things that used to be separate documents. And the Georgia legislature said, let's make this easier. People can do this without an attorney and without having to be notarized. Our state, it is a legal document by just having two witnesses. And let's make it that they don't have to, they can do this on their own and they can change their mind. You do one, it's a legal document, you change your mind, I don't want that person advocating for me, you do another one, revokes the old one, and now you do a new one. Okay? So now it's healthcare agents and treatment preferences, part one and part two of an advance directive. You don't even have to do both parts if you don't want to, but it's combined into one to make it easier for people. Now, what it's not, we always have to remind people, this is healthcare decisions and only healthcare decisions. So the same way a financial POA is not automatically a healthcare POA, when you name a healthcare agent, this has nothing to do with your finances. This is not a financial power of attorney. People get words confused, right? A living will is not a last will and testament. A last will and testament is for your stuff. That means I want to give my daughter this ring, da-da-da-da-da. This has nothing to do with that. So I think it's hard that so many of the words overlap, and that confuses people. So when you're talking to folks, hey, do you have a financial power of attorney? Do you have a healthcare power of attorney? Do you have a living will? Do you have a last will and testament? Different things. Knowledge is power, helping people understand what those things are. Also, big heads up, this is not a behavioral health advance directive. This directive is just for medical choices. It does not give someone authority to make behavioral health decisions for a patient. So it is very specific on page 4 that it talks about how this does not give someone rights to make only for medical health decisions, not for behavioral health decisions. So we are one of 25 states that has a psych AD that can be followed. We don't actually do those with patients because when patients are in the hospital, they're not being well maintained in their behavioral health diagnosis. But outside the hospital, there are a lot of psychiatrists and stuff that are working with their patients, and when they are well controlled, they can actually choose to make these same decisions around their psych treatment. So, and then again, one of only 25 states, Nani did a great job getting that passed here. Then that has the ability for us to follow that as well when people come to our behavioral health place, Laurelwood. But I always want people to know, if you have someone with that diagnosis, that it is available to them, but it's a separate document. Okay, so here's what we do. This is what we give patients. What's inside of this? You're going to have an advance directive on this side. This is not a Northeast Georgia Health System advance directive. This advance directive is good in the state of Georgia. Now, it's not the Georgia advance directive. If you look that one up online, it's many more pages, a little more legalese, all the same decisions. But what we did was we worked with our attorneys and we said we want to make sure we have all the states, language that's required. But we wanted a 5th grade reading level. For us, we wanted to be sure if people can do this on their own, we want people to be able to read it and do it on their own, right? We're there to help them, but this is something that everybody has a right to these things. So that's the AD. But there's also other brochures on the other side. Will you pass this back a row to row? Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so what's inside there? I will say over and over and over again, the most important thing you do in an advance directive is give someone authority to be your healthcare agent. That's the most important thing because that is as good as an order. That is, this is who speaks for me and you don't listen to anybody else, right? Now, part 2, treatment preferences. Those become a guide to your healthcare agent. So what I always tell people is the bigger thing then is to know that no matter what boxes you check in part 2, conversation is more important than the document at that part. Because you can't document every situation that could bring you into the hospital. There is no way by checking a couple boxes that we as a health system would know everything you could want in any circumstance that could bring you in. From a heart attack to a stroke to falling off the back of a truck, whatever it is, you can't document all those. So giving the authority in part 1 is the most important thing. And then having a conversation with the people that you love. Now let's talk about what quality of life means to me. Now let's talk about when I might want to be a DNR or when I wouldn't want to be a DNR. Let's talk about when I would want ventilation or maybe I wouldn't, right? So this has questions. This is the conversation. This is the most important part. Talk through these things with your loved one, and then that helps to have a difficult conversation. Because a lot of people shut down and go, let's talk about it if you had to advocate for me. And people are like, I don't want to talk about that. Why would I want to talk about it if you were in a position of potentially dying and not speaking for yourself? Well, because I want to make it easier for you if you are in that situation. And believe me, if I could bring my 3 sons up here, they would tell you they hear about this ad nauseum because I come home every day and go, okay, listen, I went into a room today and talked, and this is a situation, so you need to know if I was in that circumstance, this is what I want you to do. And they're like, good grief, Mom, can you please stop talking about this? And I'm like, but I gotta live this out because this is what's really happening every day. So the conversation is what I tell people is the most important thing. And Remember, knowledge is power. You're asking someone to make decisions about mechanical ventilation and hydration and nutrition. Are we doing an NG tube through the nose? Or are we doing a PEG tube with surgery? What does this mean to people? People are like, I don't know. Here it is. Risks and benefits of life-sustaining treatment. Here's what life-sustaining treatment is. Here's what the risk is for it. Here's what the benefit is. What does this do? This says that it is your right to make choices about these things, not our right as a health system, right? We don't want to make these choices for you. We want to give you the knowledge so you can make these choices. This is a great document. We got it from the VA, one of the good things the VA did, because it really is. It's not biased. It's saying, here we go, on the last section about CPR. Let's talk about it. 18 out of 100 people survive CPR. Okay, that might be a good talking point with my family member then. Because people go, CPR, what I see on TV. What does everybody want from CPR? I want to be the same afterwards as I was before. What is the likelihood of that for you, though? What is the likelihood of, look at this one shaking her head, she knows. She knows. And I usually see someone in the room that's going, I've seen CPR, most people haven't, they've only seen it on TV, and what happens on Grey's Anatomy, they look just as beautiful and wonderful afterwards as they did before, and nobody saw their ribs getting broken, nobody saw the pain, nobody saw the trauma of CPR, and nobody saw whether they didn't get enough oxygen to their brain, and now they aren't the same afterwards. So you have to think about 18 out of 100. It's not saying I'm going to tell you, sorry, you shouldn't really have CPR. It's saying you should have a conversation so that you can talk about with your loved one, hey, you're at the hospital. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what it is. Let's talk about, the number of people that I see in the hospital that we start talking about, and they're like, well, yes. And I'm saying you talk about this with your family, and if you would want this. I know my dad was very clear in his last 2 years of life. Anytime he came to the hospital, he's like, Olivia, I don't care if I'm there for stubbing my toe. If I can't speak for myself, you make me a DNR. Because if for any reason my heart stops, I don't want them to do this to me. I want to be done, accept that. And they had to call me a couple times. Rather than the hospital, Olivia, we see that you're his healthcare agent. Your dad's here, he came for UTI, he's kind of off mentally, waxing and waning. What would his code status be, or what would he want it to be? You need to make him a DNR if his heart stops. I know he's not there for that, but if something happens, I'm honoring his wishes. And then I call my brothers and sisters and say, hey, you guys, just want to know, Dad's in the hospital, I have made him a DNR for his wishes. So, that's what these are for. I think these are great resources. Use them, read through them, think about talking with your own loved one about it. Now,
That's a quick question.
Yes.
How does it work? I know you're saying this is through, Northeast Georgia.
Yes.
What happens within the state of Georgia if you have, is there like a database or where this goes into?
No, but would you help me go to the legislature to fight for that? Because I wholeheartedly, there are a few states that have a statewide database, we do not.
Yeah.
So this is good in the state of Georgia. Copies are as good as the original. I tell people the biggest thing you do is make sure that you have a copy, that your loved ones that you've named have a copy.
Okay.
They can produce it anywhere. You do upload it into our system, and so through Connect, we do have access to other hospitals,
Okay.
but not every hospital.
Okay.
So yes, I think we should actually have a statewide as well as a national registry.
Well, that's my next question, is I was gonna think if you're traveling, things like that.
And we got a lot of people that
Yeah.
travel, and so that's where they carry this with them, along with the card that says, I have an advance directive, and this is who speaks for me, and they have the legal copy of it, so they don't have to roll up their actual advance directive and put it in there. So, they travel with these, and I've had a number of people that are out of state that say, I fell when I was in New York, and I took my can with me to the hospital, and they were able to reach out to the person who's my healthcare agent. So, very important, but I think that we need to do better. I think absolutely, but I can get on that soapbox another time. But yeah, you will definitely hit my trigger button with that. So, let's talk about the advance directives. Let's talk about how super easy this is to do this. Name and date of birth on the front. Page 2, nothing to do on it because it's just instructions saying, guess what? Here's what the Georgia legislature did. They combined these things into the advanced directive. But it helps people understand what's in here. All right, page 3, part 1. This part will be effective even if you do not do part 2, as it says at the top. And it says, who would make a good healthcare agent? Who do you want to give authority to? Someone over 18, someone that you trust, someone that knows you well and can make decisions in difficult times. Because if they're calling on this, this means that your loved one is in the hospital and can't make decisions for themselves. So preparing someone, that if I'm asking you to do this, I know this is going to be hard to carry out, but this is why I want you to do it. Because you also have to name someone that will follow your wishes even if they disagree with them. Big thing we see, people being able to carry out their loved one's wishes. Because they make it about themselves, and we think that love means holding on. We think that I show you that I love you if I can't let you go. And is that the quality of life your loved one wanted? You have to choose someone. When you are giving someone this authority, you're saying, I want you to be able to follow my wishes, even if you don't agree with them. So, important points. And then you're giving someone authority. And if they're not available, you're giving, so you can name a backup. If they're not available, you can name a backup. Why do you do this? Because I've had people say, I want to name my son. He's incarcerated. Okay, we might not be able to get in touch with him 24/7. Would we have a backup to that? Absolutely. Then I want to name so-and-so. We have people that say, I want to name all my children, and I'm going to name all my children on line 1. Well, you can't do that. That's us just getting consensus. You can name a child, and another one, and you can say, I still want you guys to talk, but the healthcare needs one voice to listen to. So it's really important to encourage that we're not saying you can't talk to other people, but it's saying make sure that you give us one voice to listen to. It doesn't have to be family members. It can be friends. It can be neighbors. It can be people from your church. It has to be someone, though, that can meet those qualifications of, being able to honor your wishes. The thing about page 4 is that it tells you exactly what authority you're giving someone. They're like, okay, I'm naming someone as a healthcare agent. What does this mean they can do? Well, that's great, because page 4 tells you exactly what they can do. And it says, hey, they have access to your medical records. They can make contracts for you for your care. Doesn't make them liable to pay for it, right? Your financial power of attorney or whoever's over your state, you're still paying for your care. But they can make contracts for you, right? It says here that only the courts can remove the authority of your healthcare agent. Because if you've given someone this authority, you need to be sure they really were someone that will be able to follow your wishes. Because if we have out-of-state sister calling and saying, wait a minute, this isn't what my brother would have wanted. And we're like, well, he gave this authority to his son. We're listening to him. He's saying this is what he would want. And she's like, no, he's doing this because he's getting the Social Security checks. So he's going to keep holding on for that reason. It's like, ooh, well, he didn't choose the right person then, and we're legally bound to listen to him because this is who he gave authority to. They would have to get the courts involved to remove that authority. You say, okay, then you have to reach out to Adult Protective Services and start proving the case that he's not advocating on his father's best wishes. And then the bottom part is statutory language that the Georgia legislature requires. It says after death authorities. The top things are saying while you're living, this person is making all these decisions for you. But after you pass away, sometimes people go, I don't want them to have certain authorities after I die. I don't want them to be able to make, say I have an autopsy or organ donation or body donation or final disposition of your body. So some people will say, no, people feel very strong about organ donation, for or against. And I am not biased to say that they don't have a right to feel that way. So some people go, oh, no, nobody's donating anything of mine because I'm going to the grave with all of it. And other people go, I want them to take whatever they can and I want to be sure that they will do that for me. You're not choosing organ donation here. You're choosing, do they have authority to advocate for you in that, right? So some people, this is a signing out of, which is very confusing for people. People think if I'm signing, I'm saying okay to this. This is a signing out of. I'm saying I don't want them to have this authority. They have all the authority. And I tell people, if you've had a good conversation and you truly trust your loved one, there's no reason to limit their authority and sign any of this. But some people go, well, I'm giving authority to my significant other girlfriend, but my son is the one that I'm going to give authority for final disposition of my body. Okay, then take that authority away from your girlfriend and write him in as the person that you're giving final disposition to. So, I'm going to tell you that, and this is just me, but the worst thing the Georgia legislature did was put a box at the bottom of the healthcare agent saying, I'm going to choose not to be a healthcare agent. And just listen to my part 2. Well, what did we already say about part 2? You cannot document every single thing that's going to bring you into the hospital. And I know the goal. The goal was to say we want people to have autonomy in their choices. And I'm all for that. But I will tell you that the way the hospital has to enact the law is that we have to have somebody that speaks for you. We're looking for adult friends to sign adult friend forms. We have to have somebody because we cannot come across biases. Yep, we made that choice for them. We're just going to go ahead and do this or not do this. No, we are looking for someone. So for our unhoused population in Gainesville, I am constantly saying, you are estranged from your family for a reason, and it is not for me to say what that is, but I will tell you, you need someone to advocate for your wishes. Because don't ever check that box. Because what happens is this. Everybody has someone. Everybody. By law, the hospital system, when you do not have an advance directive on file and you haven't named someone, we go by this order, right? So therefore, if you don't name someone in part 1 and you're trying to avoid someone in your family making your decision, I tell people, we're going to go to them. We use what's called your LMS, your legal medical surrogate order, right? So if someone is married, we're going to your spouse. How does this work? I go in and see people all the time and say, well, don't worry, we're legally separated. Well, I don't know what legally separated means, but I know that by being still married, that person speaks for you. And I don't care if you haven't seen her in 10 years. I don't care if you guys both have your own boyfriends and girlfriends now, but you guys have stayed together because divorce was too expensive or because of keeping insurance. Whatever the reasons people tell me, I'm like, that person still has legal rights to speak for you. So if you don't want us to pay attention to the legal medical surrogate order, give authority to somebody else who you want us to reach out to, because then we don't pay attention to this because you've given authority. The very first person is who you've appointed, right? But when you haven't, we go to spouse. If you're not married, though, then we go to children. And again, here we go back to the way the law is written. The law is written that any child can advocate for their parent. Now, you have 5 kids, you have 12 kids, you have 2 kids, and one says do everything and one says do nothing. What do? We as a health system have to enact the law by waiting for consensus of those children. So, why do we name one instead of not naming all 5 on one line? Because that's just waiting on consensus either way. If we're going to say everybody has to be involved, then don't bother putting all 5 on one line. But something else that we see is family can't make up their mind, and we don't have a voice to listen to. So people understanding consensus, people understanding that common law marriage does not count as being a spouse. Legally, that person does not have rights for you. And if you're estranged from your children, but you didn't give your significant other rights to make decisions for you, we're going to your estranged children. That's what we have to do. By law, we have a hospital investigator for the reason of we're required to follow this. So if I can help people have the knowledge of knowing that pick somebody, it can be your neighbor, it can be somebody else, then you alleviate us from having to go through this, right? Because if you don't have children, then do you have living parents? But if you don't have living parents, it becomes the consensus of your siblings. Do you have the out-of-state sister that's going to disagree with the in-state brother? I don't know. Do you not have siblings? We go down into grandparents and grandchildren and nieces and nephews. I'm amazed at how many people will just say, well, it's my nephew. He's my only living relative. Okay, well, that's all right as far as accelerating care. Below this line becomes these people can still consent to care for you, but you know what they can't do? They can't make you a DNR. So they don't have full authority. This person can say, you know what? I actually know that he wouldn't want to have CPR if his heart stopped. Well, guess what? You don't have enough authority by state law to make him a DNR. So we have to go through the system of the healthcare that says we have to go through the ethics committee. And so the ethics committee has to gather, and we have to have 2 physicians agree, and we have to have the ethics committee agree that we're doing what the patient would want and making them a DNR. So all that's to say, these people might be your people, make them your healthcare agent. Name it in here. Make it easier for us to listen to them, for your wishes to be followed, so we don't have to go through all that. All right. That's a lot, I know. I feel like I just talked a lot about all this. Okay, so then, part 2, right? Remember that part 2 says at the top, just like our nice state government says, part 2 will be followed even if you haven't done part 1. But what's going to happen? We're going to go to your LMS in part 1 if you haven't done it, so don't do that. But it also says, first paragraph, if you've named someone in part 1, everything here becomes a suggestion. It's just guidance. This is not legal for us to follow. We are not coming in and going, hey, they checked the box that they want to allow their natural death, so we're not doing anything. We're talking to your healthcare agent and saying, is this a circumstance that they would want this followed? Your healthcare agent always trumps any box on here, which is why you have to name someone that's going to follow your wishes, right? Because someone could check a box. This happened. Someone checked it, and there's 2 choices within it, within the boxes that you check. It's terminal illness and permanent state of unconsciousness. These are called invoking clauses. When does this apply? This applies when you're either in a state of terminal illness or in a state of permanent unconsciousness. So, patient has an anoxic brain injury, not getting oxygen, they're being supported by life support machines. Has written in, you can write within here, do everything, do nothing, or that pendulum swings all the way, and you can say, or anything in between. I want some of this, but I don't want that. I do want this, but I don't want that. And then there's even lines to personalize it even more. Okay, I don't want this, but you know what? Try this for 2 months. Try this for 6 months. I'm willing for this to, I don't want to become a financial burden on my family. I don't want, financial bankruptcy, medical bankruptcy is the biggest thing in our country. People get scared about that. So they're like, I want them to try this for so long, but I don't want it forever. I'm willing to be on a ventilator for this much time, but I don't want to go live on a vent farm in South Georgia where I'm just going to subsist on a ventilator for the rest of my life and never know who I am, where I am, or who I'm with. Some people say yes, that's why that vent farms exist, because some people say yes to that quality of life, and that is their choice. The person has to advocate for you, right? So, family member has written in, I want to allow my natural, they checked I want everything. And then they stipulated by the line saying, but only for 6 months. If I'm not going to regain meaningful life, I will want care removed. Person ends up in an accident. Their spouse that is over 40 years is advocating for them. And she's getting scared because the 6-month mark is coming up. And she's like, is the hospital going to make me remove care after 6 months? And I'm like, no. She goes, I've been talking to the neurologist and they tell me that the brain heals slower than other things, and so can we give him more time? I'm like, these are his wishes. This was what you were talking about with him. We are not going to say 6 months, ding, ding, here's the day, we're coming and pulling it. It says it right here. No, you are his advocate. You are deciding with your family, when do you want this? And at month 7, they realized that nothing else was going to happen and they removed care. But you need to remember, this helps as guidance. He had had a conversation with them about, this is not how I want to live life. But she realized in his situation of what they never expected, and he ended up on event for 6 months, that she was going, wow, I need to make a decision now about how I honor this. And she was weighing that fact of, could he potentially be getting better? I'm not sure. And that was for her to decide, not for us. And we weren't looking at check boxes and saying, sorry, man, we're here to pull the tube. He's done. That was his wishes. No, that's not how it works. Yes?
Is there a document that would be in place that would say, do it after 6 months? Let's just say I have a friend who has a wife who's very indecisive and would probably never pull the plug.
Yeah. So, no. I will tell you that the pulse is going to be a medical order, but this first paragraph, the person that has authority is always going to make that decision. That conversation of being able to follow your wishes even if they disagree with them. It goes back to, and you just made the greatest point ever, which we see very often, it's about your wife not your wife, that person's wife, your friend's wife, not being able to let go. And the number of people that we speak to that are like, this is so hard for me. And I was even telling that woman, I was like, I'm not saying that don't feel pressured that this 6-month deadline is like waiting on a day, but also know that you're honoring your husband's choices. And so I know that this is hard. It's hard to honor someone's choices, but you have to go back to reframing it and saying, but is this quality for me? Is this what I would want? And it's hard to let people go. That's what I don't get to alleviate. The pain and loss of death and dying is real, and it is going to happen. But that's the whole point, is that if you've been able to have conversations ahead of time, it's not going to alleviate the pain of death, but it is going to help give people a sense of peace, of being able to do that. So peace in the process and peace in the pain of, but you know what? And that's what her family came to. She and her children were like, they wrestled with it because they weren't going to wrestle forever. They wrestled an extra month, that they had to come to that. And so your friend would have to be in that position of saying, listen, I know this is going to be hard, but whatever the circumstance, I don't want this forever. And so some people can make that choice after weeks. Some people can make that choice after months. Sadly, I would say that there's some people that can never make that choice, and they do end up having to look for facilities that will take them for long term. And those families have to live with that decision. So, yeah, there's no way we can force that. And that's why sometimes people say, I'm not going to fill out part 1, I'm just doing part 2. And I'm like, no, your legal medical surrogate or your healthcare agent is going to make the decision, because we can't just follow a checkbox. And that's the whole point, is that we get to this point of part 2 being about, I love the part that you may not control life circumstances, but you sure as heck want to control what you do with them. So, yes.
I was wondering if there's a way to write in something like, for anything that's not checked or clear already, can we request family and or patient education on anything that's not covered in that risks and stuff?
And that should be automatic. I mean, and that should be the process of conversation that you're having with your loved one. It should be, hey, tell them that you want to understand what the risks and benefits are of this.
Yeah, so I'm just in a scenario like, we want to give your mom X medicine. Mm-hmm. I've never heard of this medicine before. I have no idea what this can do to her with side effects and everything. I personally would want that, and I would want my mom to be able to decide to say, my daughter needs the education on this before she makes the decision.
Absolutely. And that's kind of one of those things that's a given in this, and that's what's hard about it, is that the education, you always health literacy is that you're always supposed to have the ability to understand everything that's being done to you, all of your choices, your access to choices, the effects of those choices. And so it's a matter of empowering you to ask for it. That's the point in this, is it's not so much as writing that down here as much as you knowing that you absolutely, patient rights, that is your right to know that and to question that. I think that's the part that comes back to people feeling like they're passive recipients of care instead of active participants. Know that you absolutely have the right to choose what you want and don't want without bias from anybody else, right? So we have Jehovah's Witness patients that choose no blood products, and it is not for us to determine that that is right or wrong. It is for us to honor their wishes in that. So that falls to a lot of other decisions. It can be long-term dialysis. It can be certain, chemos or treatments. It's like, what, it is for you to choose what you want and what you don't want. So that's the whole point of it. Because that's the other thing, is that people also think that they're choosing comfort measures. Like, people go, I just want to be sure I have someone that can get all the medicine. And you as a nurse will know, the medicine isn't the question. You're going to get that. Your loved one can be advocating for it, but that's a given. It talks about here, you're choosing, I try to tell people, you're choosing between not therapeutic care and life-sustaining care. Therapeutic care is going to be given to you. If you're our whole goal is to help you get better. If you have pneumonia, we're going to put you on a vent so that you can get off it. Now, life-sustaining care can be the inactive brain injury that says, we're putting you on a vent and you're never coming off of it. Do you want life-sustaining care for this? Because therapeutic care, people get confused and think that, well, what if I come in for a broken leg and I checked a box that said I wouldn't want CPR? I'm scared, and it's like, no. That's not how this works. But people, my place is to say, I get why you might feel that way and you're scared, so let me tell you, empower you to ask the questions that you need asked. So, comfort is more than medicine. There's a section in here that talks about what else you would want. Who do you want around? Who do you not want around? Pet therapy, music therapy. There's all sorts of things other than medicine. We're going to give you all the medicine, right? But what else brings people comfort? What else makes things easier in the difficult days, right? A lot of people are really big on, I know who I don't want around. All right, let's make sure they know that. Make sure your friend's wife knows who you don't want around. That's the part that's important. Food, pets, places, memories, music, spiritual care, all those things. Super easy to make legal. Someone has to sign and date this saying that I made these decisions. Nobody made these decisions for me. You have to be of sound mind to make an advance directive. You can't make one for your family member. They have to sign it saying these are my decisions. Nobody coerced me into this. And then you get those two witnesses that are not anybody that you named as the healthcare agent and nobody in your family. Because if someone could benefit from your death, it could look like they also biased your decisions in this. So following the witnessing rules that are at the top that nobody reads, and then I have to come tell them, I'm sorry, you did your advance directive wrong. So I have to help them do it correctly. It's all in there, but people really don't read the documents that they sign. So that's what happens. So I remind people, you have to have capacity to do an advance directive, okay? These have to be your choices. These are your legal wishes. Now, the bigger thing is this document. Legal wishes, medical order, portable medical order. This PULSE stands for a physician order for life-sustaining treatment. This is something different. When you go into the hospital, the physician comes to the room and says, while you're here, if your heart stops, what would you want to be? And you become a DNR if you don't want treatment, right? Do not resuscitate. Do not resuscitate is not a choice within this because that's a medical order. You can choose in your choices here, I wouldn't want CPR, or I would only want it if I'm at the point that it can help me more than harm me, because remember, you get to a point where it harms you more than it helps you. But that's CPR. That's saying when a physician comes to my room, I'm going to say, I don't want it, or if I can't speak for myself, My healthcare agent's gonna say, like I did for my dad, he would wanna be a DNR while he's here. This is a DNR. This says, I've talked to my physician, I've taken this to my physician's appointment with me, and I have talked through these things because remember, we live in a country that EMS is required to do life-sustaining treatment on you. The only way that they are alleviated from that is through a physician order. This has to be in your home for them not to do life-sustaining treatment for you. So that DNR tattoo doesn't do any good, this does. So, and the ED, they're required by law, right? Because of wrongful deaths. My loved one was having a heart attack and you guys didn't do anything. I don't care if someone told you they didn't want it. You're required by law because of wrongful death. If we don't do life-sustaining treatment on you, we're liable if you come back and tell me that they wanted everything. What happened is this came about because of wrongful life. Wrongful life lawsuits exist because people say, I told you I didn't want this, and you did it anyway, and now I have a poor quality of life that I didn't want, but you didn't follow my wishes. So, what makes you qualified for a pulse? You have to be considered in your last year of life, or have dementia. In aging, you don't have to have capacity to do this. Your authorized person, your LMS, can do this for you. Your legal medical surrogate can talk to your physician and say, my loved one can't make these decisions for herself anymore, but I know, we've talked about it before, but I know she would not want to be resuscitated if she were at home and EMS had to come. And then it gives a lot of other choices as well. This is more than code status because it goes through comfort measure, it goes through hydration, nutrition, it goes through antibiotics. Hey, they don't want UTI antibiotics anymore. They're done. No more of this. So people in that long goodbye, dementia and Alzheimer's, this gives them the ability to make choices. This is the closest thing you get to a state that document that we can follow. Now, the qualifier. Who always has a right to make a decision for you? Your healthcare agent and your LMS. So if you come to the hospital and you've done a pulse and the physician has signed it with their license number on it, saying you want to be a DNR. Why are you coming to the hospital? Well, if you're coming to the hospital for a broken leg, we're going to, you can change your mind every time you come to the hospital. Do you want to be a DNR? Yes. You come back next week, do you want to be a DNR? No, I want to be a full code. Okay? Because you have that right to change your mind, you're saying when you do this that you don't want to change your mind anymore. But because that right always exists, when you come in with a broken leg, we're still required to reach out to your healthcare agent and say, do they want to be a DNR while they're here? That's what their pulse says. Now, EMS comes to your home, they're not going to resuscitate you and they're going to follow it. You go to the ED and you're actively having a heart attack that your heart is stopping, they're going to follow it. In emergent situations, that's why the state backed it. But in a non-emergent situation, you better be sure your loved one is going to concur that yes, these are your wishes, because we're still going to be required to ask them. So, as close as you can get to saying, how can I be sure my loved one? That's about it. Yes.
This is something, the pulse, that physicians will do, with their, is it part of like their annual or anything like that, or is this?
Because you have to be
patient-initiated?
considered in because it's patient initiated,
Okay.
and because it's not part of like an annual wellness visit, because you have to be considered in your last year of life. I will tell you that a lot of the assisted livings and SNFs do pulse on all their patients.
Okay.
So that if something happened to one of their residents, then they don't have to call EMS, or EMS, they call EMS, but they're not required to do life-sustaining treatment. Because usually they have to come, go to Manor Lake, pick them up, take them to the hospital, code them the whole way, and then pronounce them at the hospital, which is just cruel. So this was a way of alleviating. It's mostly good in the home setting.
Okay.
Once you get to the hospital, we're still required to do so many things that we're still required to make sure these are your wishes. So that's where we always want people to understand that. Okay. I don't want to go long. Okay, this is the plan in a can. Wisdom Keepers did this in the community. You guys can take this. This recycled tennis cans. It comes with a health form inside, so that when the EMS comes to your home, it lets them know your medications, your allergies, your medical history. I have a pacemaker. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I'm on this chemo, whatever, I'm a Jehovah's Witness. Whatever they need to know quickly to get you the best care from your home to the hospital goes here. But it's a recycled tennis can. You can also throw in a phone charger, those things that nobody has at the hospital. Everybody has a phone, nobody has a charger. During COVID, when visitation got shut down, we realized, oh my goodness, everybody has a nice paperweight. Nobody can get a hold of anybody on it. Extra set of glasses, what else, personalized, what else you would need to have in an emergency if you had to quickly grab it and go to the hospital. Goes on top of your fridge. That's where EMS looks for vital information. Pulses go on the fridge. This goes on your fridge. That way, and this starts a conversation with family. Hey, you know what? Mom that lives with me that's older, let's go ahead and get this together if you had to go quickly to the emergency room. And then if you're not able to speak for yourself while you're there, if I had to speak for you, can we have a conversation about what you would want me to advocate for and start these other things? That's what's important about it. So quickly, the whole reason for this is because we're trying to move from the stark emptiness of wait, I'm not ready, to what Gordon Sawyer's family told us. He was a man that did a radio show up in Gainesville called From My Window on Green Street. When he came to the hospital, his family said, you know what, because we'd had an advanced care planning conversation, we were able to walk the path he set. And what a gift that was to them. That's what we want people to have, that sense of peace. So, I always start off with Mandela and very high-minded, wonderful quote, and I always end with country music like a redneck. So, Tim McGraw, how many of you got a Christmas card this year that said, hey, I hope you have a great 2026 and get the chance to live like you were dying? It's an odd sentiment, right? It seems odd, but the song, I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying, isn't a song that's talking about dying. It's a song that's talking about living. Because if you reframe and talk about what it's like to live like you were dying, it actually changes how you live. Because the song talks about, I offered more forgiveness. I was kinder. Yes, I wrote a bold name to Manchu or whatever. But the bigger thing is if you listen to those words, it's how it changed how someone lived. We're not changing how people die. But this conversation can change how people live. So, that's your Christmas card next year. I hope you get the chance to live like you were dying. And that is it from me. So, you guys can keep these resources, take them and use them with people that you love. You can only do a pulse with a physician, so don't think that you can fill that thing out yourself. You can take cans if you have people that can use these. Do you have any questions for me? Yes?
Where do people get those cans?
From me.
Is that where they, at the hospital?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
It's more of a question, but we lost my dad last spring, and my stepmother was definitely one of the people that should not have been his person to make decisions because it was just really hard for her to get to accept his wishes. But the other issue, I see it's something you can check off on here, is the after death cremation burial. That we all knew he wanted to be cremated. She didn't admit it, but it wasn't known anywhere, and it was like, so not only that, but where they want their ashes, where they want to be buried. So,
And people think, I don't want to talk about that, but it really does. It's really one of the greatest gifts you can give people. That it's like, and the thing about remembering about who the LMS would be, she had authority since they got married, right? But remembering who you're removing when you're taking someone out. So like I went to see a young 19-year-old guy and I'm thinking, on the referral it's saying that he wants to name his girlfriend. And I'm like, oh, sweet baby, he has no idea. The girlfriends come and go and he is removing this authority from his mother. You know what though? Wrong on me for my bias. I walked in that room and he made it very clear why his mother should not be his person, what his life circumstances were. He was facing a very serious diagnosis. And his girlfriend that was there, boy, put me to shame. I was like, you know what? Never should we be biased. I always want people to understand, hey, this is who your LMS is. And when you name this person no longer speaks. So people removing, when people are named, I've had people that name a significant other and then daughter comes in and goes, this happened to me just last week. She was like, why did she name him? And I was like, because she told us that she didn't want to add more to your plate. And she's like, oh, I wanted to be the person advocating for her. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. And her mom's on that, couldn't make a decision, couldn't change her mind. I'm glad we had documented well why she had chosen the significant other. But it's like, remember, for people to understand, when you're choosing someone, who you're giving authority to and who you're taking it away from. And conversations, communication are what make a difference in this. And really ease in the decision-making for people to go, I know. I had this conversation. I know what she wanted. I know what he wanted. Let's work together to honor that. So there's just so many nuances to this. And that's where we really were so desperate to get more people to talk about it. I mean, there's so many things going on about death over dinner and death cafes around the country. And they tried to have a death cafe up at the Gainesville Library a week ago and nobody showed up. And I can't remember what group was doing it. I felt terrible for them because I was like, I know what you're trying to do. But all my ladies that volunteer with this program were like, why don't I go to something called the Death Cafe? That sounds hideous. And I'm like, because people are trying to help us as a country talk about this because we can't. As a society, we struggle with talking about death. And we think that there's something wrong with talking about it as if we're wishing it on somebody. In my mom's own disease process, I remember I didn't want to talk about death with her because it felt like I was saying I didn't want her chemo to work. It's like, no. It was that she had tried chemo for 4 years and she had tried surgeries. She was just wanting to talk to me about what her quality of life was becoming. And I realized, it's like, wow, we really need to let people talk about this. And it should be long before they're at that point of needing to talk about it. The gift is in doing it much sooner. So I hope you guys found this helpful. Yes.
You mentioned bringing the can with you traveling.
Yes.
But these legal documents and the advance directive and the DNR things, those don't apply outside of the state of Georgia.
So here's the thing, they are all state documents. In our state, we have the Pulse. I noticed that the advertisement for this said the most. Other states have the most or the most. Every state has their version of an advance directive and a Pulse. The choices in them are the same. So if you ended up in a hospital in New York, our hospital says we will honor out-of-state advance directives. That's how we operate. I'm not saying 100%, but this is why we need the national and state registry, because it should be, we shouldn't have a Pulse, a Post, a MOST, and a MOLST, which are all medical order for life-sustaining treatment, medical order for sustaining treatment. Why do we have these for 50 different states? We shouldn't. But at least it gives a hospital access to who would be making your decisions for you. The healthcare agent, you've given them authority. That's going to be across the board.
And that authority crosses state lines.
It's going to say that you have legally done for your state. They should honor it. Would there be a legal case? I don't know. But I'm just saying you've done all that you can. Yeah.
If it got down to the wire and there's not much time, I would imagine that they could go ahead and honor
Yeah.
that.
over a tattoo, right? So, yeah. All right, any other questions? Y'all good? Thank you guys, appreciate it. Thank you. Jenny, reach out if you can. I got more up here if anybody wants to take any. And I have cards even if you don't want to intimidate someone, just go, hey, reach out. She can start a conversation with y'all. So if y'all want that.